Good evening, everyone. I can see a lot of audience still joining the call. I think we'll start the discussion. It's a very long session today. A very warm welcome to exciting audience who have come with eagerness to learn from our 8th series of MIIP. MIIP stands for Major Infrastructure and Industrial Project Special Interest Group. So this platform, we from PMI Singapore chapter. My name is Harihara, the vice president and the co-founder of this special interest group, and the current chair of this MIIP SIG. So basically, this platform is started in 2020. So with the sole purpose of collaborative knowledge sharing with experts around the globe, and because not everybody get an opportunity to work on a different set of projects, so we talk to experts to come in and share something which is quite going well with our theme, how we create for every series for the benefit of learning of the community. And our MIIP mission is basically to build a major infrastructure and industrial project community of practice where professionals share their expertise, values, tools, and standards for collective learning. So this community of practice, we believe will form the backbone of development of best practices and thought leadership, which will be curated by a global core team of MIIP professionals and supported by some of the subject matter experts. So right now we are like a team of 7-8 people put together our thoughts to form a theme, and every few months, every quarter we target one series. So we are at 8 series now. In past, we started with the digitalization. We talked about risk management, and we talked about legal aspects, what needed for major projects. And last couple of series, we are talking about artificial intelligence. So we find PMI from PMI, we find AI is going to have a lot of benefits for project management efficiency and how we can deliver project success. So I don't think anyone will say at this moment AI we can compromise and do something like traditionally how we used to do projects. So with all in thought, so PMI is focusing more on AI stuff, and I will come later about when we have a panel discussion. The closing time, I can share some more details what PMI perspective we have for AI. And with that short introduction, and I would like to say we have 4 speakers today, and our moderator will guide through the program, and we'll have a panel session, and we will ask every one of you to enter your questions in Slido, and we will share with you in the chat or the Slido link. And with that note, I will hand over to our moderator, Ms. Lina, who is working for Meinhardt Singapore as digital lead for water and environmental and digital technology solution. So with that note, Lina, over to you.
Thank you, Hari.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Hari, for and also PMI for this opportunity. It is such an honor to be a part of this knowledge sharing series. Good morning, afternoon, evening to every one of you guys in this event, wherever you are in the world. Hope you're getting comfortable as we dive into the world of AI. Right. So some house rule is that this webinar, as we all are aware, that is going to be recorded and it will be available in the PMI website. During this webinar is going to be muted. So question as what Hari was mentioning, put it up into the Slido, and do take advantage of the poll. I mean to go and vote up the question so that we can actually answer it during the end of the session. During the panelists, we will try to get an answer as much as possible during the panel discussion nearing the end of the webinar. So in short, as what Hari has mentioned, I am a digital lead for Meinhardt Singapore. So I'm involved in digital delivery, information management, innovation management, and also knowledge facilitation, especially around engineering digital design for built environment. So just a intro about where I start off. In the 90s, I was in manufacturing, where we during that time we actually started with computer-aided design to digitize engineering design. Then I hopped into construction, followed by engineering consultancy, which revealed how technology in the built environment progresses exponentially with regards to information creation, management, and delivery. So it was not long ago that we actually were introduced to building information management. And now AI seems to be the buzzword of this period. So basically for this event, it's just a matter of the question as what more can be done to improve what we are doing now. So how else can we do to solve the problems that we are still facing or going to face in the future, especially in delivering projects according to expectation on time and on budget. That's why all eyes are now towards AI, or so-called our second brain, which seems to be claimed to be better than human. So now the question is, how well do we understand what AI is, what AI can do for project management and delivery, and how does AI impact how we do what we do now, and what can we do to be ready to include, to be included in this AI circle. So we have with us, as what Harry had mentioned, four knowledgeable speakers to help demystify, debunk, and provide enlightenment on how to thread into this AI world. So before I hand over the screen to our first speaker, I would like to request to the audience to have an open mind with AI, instead of seeing it as a possible risk of taking over our job or the world. Let's view it for now as a technology partner to provide that needed assistance or smartness to help solve the problem that we are facing with. So without much further ado, I'll hand over the screen over to Declan Foster. He's the CEO, co-founder, and Martello of Change Consulting. He will help us demystify AI, explain the importance of soft skill, and why there is need to take an ethical approach to AI in our project. Over to you, Declan.
Thank you very much, Lina. I'll just get my presentation ready. Okay, you should see my first slide there.
Yes, we can.
Confirm that for me. That's great. And I wanted to thank Lina, Harry, and David, and everyone else from the PMI Singapore team, for inviting me to this fantastic webinar. I'm looking forward to hearing the questions from the audience and comments from the audience, and also listening to my other speakers. My goal for the next 20 minutes or so is simply to help you understand AI a little bit more and help demystify it, and help you understand how AI can be applied to the project management profession. And I'm dialing in from Dublin. I think we've got a truly global event today with people from all over the world. So it's fantastic to be here. And it does actually seem that nowadays, whenever I open a newspaper or I look at a news website, we can always see some new story about AI. It seems to be happening on a daily basis now, not a weekly basis, a daily basis. We've got some new invention or something new happening in AI. So whether this is advances in medicine, the impact of AI on jobs, cybersecurity implications, generative AI, including, of course, the ubiquitous ChatGPT, which we'll talk about a bit later. And we have the ongoing debate about whether AI is a force for good or potentially a force for evil. And we have concerns about AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, and the technological singularity where AI meets or exceeds human intelligence, and after which we can't really predict the future. So I'm getting a little bit of feedback there, Lina. I'm not sure. Maybe other people need to go on mute. Just getting a little bit of feedback there. So Andrew Ng is one of the leading experts in artificial intelligence, actually said that, worrying about some type of AI, evil, super intelligent, is a bit like worrying about, overpopulation on the planet Mars. We haven't even landed on the planet yet. Now, that's a problem maybe for another day. But there are real and more immediate problems that we need to address, and we'll discuss some of them in today's session. So Ray Kurzweil, who's a famous inventor and futurist, has predicted that the technological singularity will occur in about 2045. And he's stuck to that date for the last 20 years or so. And this is AGI, is artificial general intelligence. And it's where the point where AI meets or exceeds a human level intelligence. And after this time, it's possible that we will have exponential growth in technology driven by AI. And it's said that it's hard or even impossible to predict what the future will be like after that event because there'll be such exponential growth. Elon Musk famously said, I think it was last year, that he expects we'll actually reach AGI by the end of this decade. So I wonder from the audience here, and maybe you can put this in the comment if that's okay, Lina. I wonder if people in the audience feel that we will actually reach AGI before 2030. Now, some people will say, actually, it'll take a lot longer. And there's even some experts who say, no, we'll never reach that. We can't actually match the human brain. It's too complex. And they're all valid opinions. So I'm quite interested to see in the audience, what do you think? Do you think we'll actually reach AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, before 2030? And we can perhaps come back to that later, but I'll be quite interested in hearing your comments on that. So let's start off with a simple definition. So for me, AI, artificial intelligence, I define it as machines acting to mimic human cognition to solve problems. It's just a simple definition. Now, although AI has been in the news a lot lately, and increasingly so, it's been around for a long, long time. I like to trace it back to the work of the English mathematician Alan Turing back in the 1950s. And he developed that famous Turing test, which you may have heard of, which is a test we can perform to see, does a machine or an artificial intelligence tool exhibit human-like intelligence? And indeed, there's a lot of focus on chatbots and, of course, ChatGPT at the moment. But as far back as 1966, we had Eliza, which was the first chatbot, which was developed by Joseph Weizenbaum in MIT. And this tool simulated a psychotherapist. And this is probably one of the first examples where in AI or computers, we start to see anthropomorphism, not an easy word to say. And that's where we attribute human qualities to non-human things, such as objects, animals, and even AI systems. So with Eliza, Joseph Weizenbaum, the inventor, he was really surprised and shocked that individuals, including his own secretary, started to attribute human-like feelings to this computer system. If we look at the hierarchy of AI for a moment, artificial intelligence also includes elements like computer vision and machine learning. But the abundance of big data and developments in computer technology and algorithms have led to giant leaps in machine learning in recent years. And to me, machine learning is really just maths and statistics, but it's on steroids. And machine learning also includes artificial neural networks, which is, it's a type of machine learning, and it's the architecture that's used to develop large language models, such as ChatGPT. And there are lots of other large language models out there, and we might talk about some of them a bit later. I should note as well that we'll also start to see, and you might see it already, some people defining artificial intelligence as where machines are acting autonomously. So, for example, in self-driving cars, people are starting to sometimes say, well, AI is where a machine acts autonomously. And one of the really interesting things, profound things that has happened is with machine learning is that it's a complete paradigm shift in how software actually works. And I'm going to try and explain that quite simply over the next few minutes. So let's think for a moment of a payroll system. And this is the traditional approach to computing. So you have your payroll program, and you have, you know, it might be from ADP or some other payroll software provider. You also have your data. You have your timesheets, and you have your employee records, etc. So you process this on your computer, and the output is the result, and that's your net pay and your tax details, etc. So machine learning actually pivots this really a little bit. So let's think of a very simple example where you want to develop a program that tells the difference between pictures of cats and dogs. Now, not a very realistic challenge for a project manager, but just a simple example. So instead of giving this program a list of instructions, a list of computer code to determine this, what we actually do is we supply the tool thousands or tens of thousands of examples of pictures of cats and dogs, and their label is either a cat or a dog. And we tell the system the result you want. We want to determine, is this a picture of a cat or a dog? And once we process this in machine learning, we then end up with the program. So that's where the flip changes. We end up with the program that then tells us in future, if you submit a picture of a cat or a dog, this program can now tell you that. And this starts to show the importance of capturing data, especially for the project management profession, where we've got historical projects and where we go through projects every 6 months or 12 months or 18 months. The real importance of capturing that data and having it available for our AI tools, and in particular machine learning tools. What I want to do is show you at least 2 examples of common algorithms that are used within artificial intelligence and how they relate to project management. So the first one that I'll talk about is linear regression. And as I said before, machine learning to me is really just, you know, statistics and maths, but it's on steroids. So the first example that people tend to use when we learn machine learning and when we learn AI is we look at the example of a house price predictor. And here we're trying to predict continuous value on the y-axis. So that could be from 0 to infinity. And on the x-axis, we have the size in square feet for a particular property. Now, in reality, you're going to have multiple features on the x-axis. So it could be, if in this house predictor example, it might be the size in square feet, proximity to public transport, number of bathrooms, number of bedrooms, size of back garden, etc., etc. You're going to have multiple features. So as we plot our historical data, and that's, as you can see by the x's on the diagram, we can start to draw a line that actually best fits the relationship between our input values x and our output values y. Now, again, when we have multiple values on x, which we normally would have, this would then be a plane rather than a line. But for now, we can think of it just as a simple line. So now we have the model, and then we have the details for a new property. Let's say we have a property that's, in this example here, 700 square feet. We can then determine or estimate, and that's a key word here, estimate what the price might be. You can see that happening here. And again, this draws the need and your attention to the need for capturing really well all that historical data, because this model here is all just based on your historical data, predicting what will happen in the future. So the classic house price example is the classic example we use when we're learning AI and machine learning. But let's talk about a project management for a moment. And what are the estimates or predictions that we might use in project management? So you can see here, we could look at the duration of the project, the duration of a task, the cost of a project, the cost of a task. We could even start to predict what's the expected delay or lag for approvals, which happens a lot on projects. And we start to look at even organizational change management impacts, and we can say, what's the change adoption rate? How many people are going to use this tool if we build it? Or what's the expected training duration? How many days training, or how much effort do we need to put into creating training materials? So then the second one I'll show you is just logistic regression. And again, the classic example that we use is trying to predict, when we learn machine learning, is trying to predict whether a particular tumor is cancerous or not. And this is a really simple example where we're just looking at the age of the patient and the size of the tumor. And you can see here that when we plot this on the axis, we have the X indicates where we think a particular tumor is cancerous, and the zeros or the circles indicate those that are considered benign. And again, we're trying to just come up with a line that separates those two items. And again, with multiple features, that line would actually be a plane. So in logistic regression, we're really trying to use this statistical method that tells you that uses binary classification problem, where you want to predict one of two possible outcomes. So it could be, and we can also do it, logistic regression, to classify data into more than two categories. So it might be high, medium, or low. So the output that we're looking for in a logistic regression could be yes or no, it's pass or fail, it's low, medium, or high, or it's red, amber, or green, in project management terms. So if you think about some of the project management estimates that you might use there, you can see we might say it might be a risk classification. Is this a low, medium, or high risk classification? Will this task be delayed? And give me a warning if this task is about to be delayed. Will this risk change into an issue? And give me perhaps a warning about that. And again, we need all that historical data so we can predict that in the future. Now, I must, of course, talk about artificial networks, because they are really where the greatest advances are happening at the moment. And they're the basis of all the tools like ChatGPT, etc. So artificial neural networks are really inspired by the structure in a human brain. I won't say they replicate it at all, because the human brain is far too complex, and we're nowhere near getting the level of complexity, in my opinion, of the human brain yet, or even in the foreseeable future. So in the human brain, when a neuron receives enough signals from another neuron that's adjacent to it, it's connected to, it does what it calls its fires, which is sending a signal out to other neurons. And this is the process at the heart of all brain activities, from moving muscles to complex thinking. So an artificial neural network, it learns by adjusting these connections, or these neurons that it has, to get better at tasks such as recognizing pictures. And as you can see by this simple image here, the neurons are in layers, and these are connected with weighted pathways. And these layers transform input data through calculations and activation functions to decide if the next neuron should fire, like the human brain does. And this then ultimately determines what's passed to the next layer, and ultimately to the output layer, to make a prediction. And as I said, artificial neurons, they sit at the heart of large language models, such as ChatGPT. And of course, we've got to talk about ChatGPT. What discussion of AI would we have without talking about large language models, and indeed ChatGPT? So ChatGPT was released, and you might remember, back in November 22, and 1 million users signed up within the first week, including, I must say, myself. And it was the fastest adopted technology in history. Now, I believe that ChatGPT, and indeed other large language models, are a watershed moment for us, for AI in particular, in two ways. First of all, it raises awareness of the potential of AI among the public. And secondly, it was probably one of the first tools that put AI into the hands of the masses. So prior to ChatGPT, these large language models were only available to programmers and developers via an API, which is the application and programming interface. And it is easy to underestimate how significant an achievement ChatGPT and other large language models are. You know, I read somewhere that, you know, the discovery of large language models is a bit like we've discovered or we found a talking dog, but now we're critical about its grammar. But there are challenges when using large language models, and we need to be aware of these in our roles as project managers as we use these tools. So, for example, large language models are prone to what's called hallucinations. So that's where essentially, so if we think about a large language model is essentially just trying to predict the next word in a sentence, or now they're so sophisticated that they're trying to predict the next sentence, the next paragraph, the next page, or even we have some people now who are writing books purely using large language models. So it's just, and essentially, if I break it down into simple terms, it's just trying to create the next word or the next sentence. And it does that based on statistical relationship between words. So it can come up with hallucinations. It can create references or site references that are incorrect, that don't exist. Because again, it's not doing it out of malice. It's just trying to predict the next word. And so we need to be aware of that, and we need to be conscious when we're using the output of these particular tools that we check the veracity of it. So other concerns that we need to be aware of are copyright issues. So tools like Stable Diffusion and Midjourney, etc., allegedly use data that's scraped from the web without the artist's consent, you know, to generate new images. So we need to be aware of that. We need to be aware of the bias that's inherent in some of these tools. And that can be a problem for machine learning models. You know, just one example. So Wikipedia is a vital component of the source training data for ChatGPT. Yet less than 15% of Wikipedia users are women. So there we start to see an immediate area where you can see some bias inherent in some of these tools. We also need to look at some of the ethics around these tools. So let's spare, you know, it's great fun to have play around with ChatGPT, and it can be great for brainstorming, and we'll talk about some of the use cases in a moment. But, you know, let's spare a thought for some of the low-paid workers who are tasked with removing, you know, offensive and obscene material in the data sets used to train ChatGPT. So Time magazine, I think it was last year, had a great expose where they reported that this task of cleaning up the material for training material for ChatGPT was outsourced to workers in Kenya who were earning less than $2 per hour. And required them to read through hate speech and descriptions of violence and abuse. But they are good tools for us to use, and there are lots of ways we can use it. So, for example, in project management terms for ChatGPT and other large language models, we can start to use it for sentiment analysis. We can even start to use it for simulated conversations or role play. For example, if you feed it the information on your particular project, you can role play. Maybe you can ask it to have a challenging or difficult conversation with a project sponsor, and you're preparing that. So you can ask the tool to role play that and ask you some probing or difficult questions about your project. We can also use it, of course, for summarizing text as well. And we're going to see more examples of different vendors. You'll see several of them from the next speakers. But I'll just pick out a few here just to kind of show you a broad spectrum of the sort of applications of AI that's been used in project management software. So if you look at, and I think some of these actually vendors appeared on previous PMI Singapore sessions. So we can look at, say, for example, Nodes and Links, which is a UK-based company that uses AI and your project and your project schedules and updates to understand your performance and use it to give you a realistic prediction for all future activities. So we can start to predict, you know, your Gantt chart for future activities. Octant.IA, Australian-based company that focuses on major infrastructure projects, and it uses AI for early and accurate prediction of financial distress on projects. So that's their particular niche. Stone Metal Consulting, and this is from Professor Bodrow in Canada, and he's also actually written several excellent books on using AI in project management that I can highly recommend. But he developed an AI project success predictor tool, which was based on a neural network that used over 80 factors or features from 35 real projects to predict the success of any project. And I think that tool is still publicly available, but maybe you can check with me afterwards on that. And I wanted to just give a quick call out to my own startup, which is Project Pal AI, which is a new startup. Because research has shown us that effective communication to all stakeholders is the single most important success factor for any project. But the process can be time consuming and inefficient, with project managers spending up to 30% of their time developing communications and reports. So Project Pal AI is project management software which enables project managers to produce a high quality, consistent, impactful communications, and it sits on top of project managers' most common applications and extracts the relevant data. So there's lots of tools out there, and I just encourage you to keep an open mind and explore more about all the tools that are available to you that leverage AI to the project management profession, including some of the speakers that will be coming up after me. So will AI take your job? Is the project management profession redundant? Not by a long shot. I like to say that, you know, AI will not take your job, but someone who can leverage AI better than you, they just might take your job. So the onus is on all of us to understand what AI can do and help make you better in your role as a project manager. But increasingly, soft skills will become more important for project managers in the coming years. So this is the stuff that AI can't do for now and for the foreseeable future. And it's interesting, we call them soft skills, but I think we're all aware that they're sometimes the hardest skills to master. And in fact, at a global level, the PMI calls these power skills. And to stay relevant, I think the project managers need to develop or improve these skills. And they include, you know, team building and development, stakeholder engagement, relationship building. So we know how important it is. If you're working as a project manager in an organization, you need to build a relationship within the organization to help your particular project you're working on at that moment to be successful, but also to set you up for further projects within the organization. So other skills that are going to be increasingly important include creativity, problem solving, coaching, and mentoring. So maybe later on today, after this webinar, have a think about these skills and which of these skills you're good at the moment, and which of these skills perhaps are a development area for you. As I come towards the end of my presentation, I always like to just make sure I give a proper mention to ethics and how important it is. One of my favorite books of recent years is from Cathy O'Neill, her book Weapons of Math Destruction, where she's talking about the pervasiveness of algorithms, you know, that are used to either give you a job, give you a home loan, or even in some parts of the US determine the sentence that you might get in a court. And she actually said the privilege we'll see time and again are processed by people and the masses by machines. So it's incumbent upon us as project managers, we implement AI systems, that we approach it in an ethical manner. And somebody actually said that ethics in an organization is a bit like emptying the company dishwasher. So we all know it's everyone's job to do it. We all know that we all benefit when it's done, but it's usually who cares about it, usually the person who cares about it the most, who actually does it. And I think that's especially true for AI ethics. So my call to action to you as I finish up my presentation is, let's prepare ourselves and our organizations and the project management profession for the impact and the benefits of AI, but let's do so with ethics in mind. And thank you, and I'll pass you back to Lina now. Thank you.
Thank you, Declan. Right. So thank you so much, Declan, for the presentation. It's very insightful. So now we have a better understanding that AI is trying to mimic the human brain in terms of relativity, logics, and predictive patterning, and that there is still need to go and consider where AI is lacking in terms of soft skill and ethics. And I was quite surprised that AI can also be biased and also can break down as easily as how human do. So in a sense, we can't totally have to rely on AI, but we need to be very strategic in terms of how do we actually use AI to facilitate us, to help us in our works. So in terms of the earlier question that Declan have already mentioned in terms of AGI, it seems like there is a split decision on it. There's a lot of there are some that is actually for that it will be before 2030. I even put in that it might actually happen before I retire. And but there are a batch that actually question in terms of the credibility, in terms of how AI can actually be as conscious as that of a human mind. So I think we will look into this further when we go into the panelist discussion. So up next, we have the next speaker, which is Martin Paver, CEO and co-founder at Project Success. So he will help us to reimagine how we do project delivery in the future, the opportunity to embrace, and strategies to leverage on. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you, Lina. I appreciate it. So welcome, everybody. I'm going to talk to you today about a fascinating topic about reimagining project delivery. So in terms of where we are at the moment with project data analytics and artificial intelligence, is this about tweaking what we're doing today, or is it starting to reimagine it? So let me share some slides with you. I'll just bring the slides up. There we go. Should be working now, hopefully.
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, great. Thank you. So that's me, Martin Paver from Projecting Success. So in terms of this presentation today, I'd like to run you through what's happening in terms of the UK at the moment. So we've got quite a lot of policy changes happening as well. We've got a load of technology coming out. We talk about data trust and so much more. So just before I jump into that, I'd just like to ask you a quick question. So if you put this into chat room. So basically, if I signed a contract with you tomorrow, so I'm your client, and I said to you, I'd like to contract for a major project. This is the cost envelope I've got. This is the time envelope, and this is the benefits envelope in terms of return on investment. What's the probability of delivering that project to that sort of business case envelope? So I'll just pull up the chat, see if I can see the numbers in there. I've lost that at the moment, actually. So it's 100% probability I've got from somebody. So that means if I sign a contract with you, there's a 100% certainty that you're going to deliver it. I've got 51%, 25%, 70% from Lina. So I've got 0 from Felicia. 20%, 50%, 62%, 10, 1%, single digit probability. So here's the numbers for you. So this is from a piece of research that has been done through a company called Oxford Global Projects. So the chap there was called Bent Fluvier. So Bent teaches at Oxford University through their business school. So Bent's looked at 16,000 projects from around the world, and he said basically is the probability of delivering a project on budget, on time, and on benefits is 0.5%. So that means we've got 1 in 200 projects is delivering as per the sanction. So what we're talking about doing through things like artificial intelligence and project data analytics, some of the things that Declan has been talking about, which is just simple regression, etc., If we apply that to current systems, we may get that 0.5% up to 0.6%. Instead, can we start to reimagine the way that we work? So we want to get that 0.5% up significantly. So what we're trying to do in the UK is to drive that up to 5%. So that 5% is still really bad, but it's 10 times better than where we are today. So on top of that, we're in a situation at the moment where we're in this exponential age. So it makes it very, very difficult to plan for. If we forecast 10 years from now and say, what's the impact on project delivery? It's really, really difficult to plan it out. So I've been sort of involved in this for the past 10 years. So we set up the project data analytics community in the UK back in 2017 as well. So we've been running things like hackathons. We've run 20 hackathons, etc. So with some of this technology, it's really difficult to plan for because of that pace of change. If you're involved in this as well, people like OpenAI can go and knock you out overnight, right? So if you're a vendor, for instance, they can bring out some capabilities which will go and kill your business as a vendor instantly. So instead of looking at this through a vendor's lens necessarily, what can we do to start to look at this through a project delivery lens, where we can now start to use all of those capabilities out there from people like Microsoft and from OpenAI and from Meta, etc. So what can we do to sort of use those and to package them and to configure them for a project delivery use case? So part of the challenge is our skills aren't keeping up now. That's something that Declan's mentioned before. So it's this rate of change. It's just getting faster and faster. So that 5 days for ChatGPT, it's gone even faster of that when Meta brought out Threads. So it got to 1 million users in 1 day. So what the UK's done, so the government project delivery function, so that's in the middle of government. So that's through an organisation called the Infrastructure Projects Authority. They brought out their function strategy for 2025. So this was published last year. And it basically said that it's got 5 strategic objectives. And one of those strategic objectives is around data-driven performance. So this is now in government policy. So they're trying to use that to drive up project delivery capabilities. So some of those other strategic objectives, like number 3, for instance, is about driving this efficient modern delivery. And they talk about things like artificial intelligence in there as well. So back in 2020, we set up something called the Project Data Analytics Task Force, where we brought a lot of people together. So I was the co-chair of that for a couple of years, so I kicked it off. So we now got a manifesto. And that manifesto has got 6 principles in it about pooling data, driving up skills, starting to open source some of these capabilities as well. So that manifesto has now been adopted by government as well, which is brilliant news. So there's a white paper there that we published back in 2020. More recently, we've been working with the Association for Project Management, and we've released this Getting Started in Project Data Guide. And then last year, at the end of last year, was a document called Developing Project Data Analytics Skills. So there's some useful material in there. I think more interestingly, from my perspective, is a couple of weeks ago was this document which was produced by government. So it came out of government and it says this is data analytics and artificial intelligence in government project delivery. So they've got those 5 principles there, which is data, skills and capability at scale. So better data and availability, evidence-based decision-making, experimented together, and data partnerships. So data partnerships start to get us into this realm of data trusts, where we can start to pool our data securely. So it's not sharing data, it's pooling data. If we can start to do that, then we can start to drive up the data volumes. We get the data better and better and better, which means we can now train the algorithms. And we can use some of those capabilities that's already out there, like OpenAI, with things called RAG models as well, on the back of that. So retrieval augmented generation as well. So this is not just picking up what we've got today and trying to make it better. We've got to change the way we work. So in the UK, in Parliament, we've got these independent commissions. So one of those is called the Public Accounts Committee, and it's their job is to oversee all of this expenditure across government. So government have looked at some of these projects, and they've said that we're failing to learn from these sort of mistakes of the past. They just keep reoccurring time after time after time. So the way that we try and solve that is through the lessons learned process, but it doesn't work. It does not work. If it did work, every time we'd make a mistake, we'd pick it up for the next time round, and it goes into our sort of learning database. We're not doing that. So I studied 20,000 lessons learned. We're not learning from all of these mistakes. So we've got to find a way of doing it differently. We need a Google map for projects, basically, which says, if there's a roadblock in front of us, what's the best way around it? And what can we learn from all those people who's gone before? So in terms of this sort of process that we're going to be going through over the next few years, where most organizations are at the moment is in this thing called descriptive analytics. And that's where we tend to be looking backwards. We're driving the car by looking through the rear view mirror. We need to be looking through the windscreen. Even better, if we've got a drone which is just in front of us and it can see what's around the corner. That's where we need to be, which is driving us towards this thing called prescriptive analytics. So with prescriptive analytics, that future is not predetermined. It's not baked in. So what can we do to influence the shape of that future? In terms of the left-hand side of that screen as well, is some definitions around what is project data analytics. So that's something we worked up with the Association for Project Management. So more interesting recently is some of this the research which is coming out of organizations like Bain and McKinsey, whatever. And it's saying that professional services will have a 41% productivity uplift through things like generative artificial intelligence. That's massive. We're not talking 1 or 2%, it's a 41% uplift. So when people saying that you're not going to lose your job, etc., where does that 41% get spent? Yeah. So it's 41% potentially less people, etc., or we can start to move people up the value chain. So it looks more challenging than that as well. So if I look at some research from McKinsey recently, so in terms of processing data, which quite a lot of people do in project delivery, we're looking at a 90% productivity uplift. That is huge. The right-hand side of that slide is about Declan's point about when do we get to the point of human level performance with artificial intelligence. So that's the Turing test. The problem with that is it's too generic. So we can achieve that today already for specific use cases. So McKinsey did some research, and basically so the first set of research was done in 2017. And they said, when can we start to get to the situation where we get human level performance for each of these capability slices? So it's things like logical reasoning and problem solving. So back in 2017, they thought we'd be looking at it in about 2050-ish. They did that survey again. So just last year, it's been brought in by decades. So in terms of logical reasoning and problem solving, in some cases, it's probably available today. It's for certain, we're going to be ticking these off one by one in terms of the use cases, one by one, where we'll get to human level performance. So this is not future gazing. This is not 2050, 2060, 2070. This is in the next few years. So my own sort of personal belief is this is just going to accelerate. So back to that slide I showed you before about exponential growth, it will just accelerate. So what does this mean for organizations? It's this difference between having a data-driven strategy or a tool-driven strategy? So you linked into things like Oracle P6, or you linked into all of the vendor type tools, or in terms of your organization, are you looking at a data first strategy, which means data is your asset. So what can you do to codify that data and to make sure you can retrieve it again in the future? So with lessons learned, you can avoid those previous mistakes. And in terms of that data, is that about your organization, or is that about profession and sector level sort of capabilities as well? So the stakes on this are really, really high, right? It makes a massive difference for project delivery. We're not talking 1 or 2% improvement here. We're talking about something really big. So it's going to affect people's careers. It's going to affect people's livelihoods as well. So what are you going to do independently and collectively so we can start to manage that risk, because it's a risk to our personal livelihoods, what we're going to do to manage it? So that brings me nicely onto this concept of risk management, right? So risk management is the human process of guessing what's going to go wrong. That's the way we tend to do it at the moment. So we get a lot of experts in a room and they all sit around and guess what's going to go wrong. Why are we doing that in 2024? We've got loads of data that's told us what's going to go wrong from the projects that's gone before us. So can we start to leverage that data? So in terms of that risk management process, what's the difference between the predisposition of certain work packages to variance, right? So as a human being, I'm predisposed to certain illnesses. It might be cancer, it might be diabetes, etc. We know that for human beings because we've been researching it for decades and decades, but we don't necessarily know that for projects, sorry. So what can we do to start to leverage some of that data? So it's about the predisposition, but we're also talking about emergence inside of the system. So it's the difference between an ordered system. It's something that is quite routine. So the 600 house on a housing estate when you're building the house, versus something that's very dynamic and emergent. So in the UK, we've got HS2 where the policy keeps changing, for instance. And what does all of that mean? So can we start to reimagine risk management? So can we move it towards variance analytics? What does all of that mean for the profession? So what we tend to be focusing on, when I speak to clients at the moment, we can talk about refine, enhance, or we can talk about reimagine. But most people are talking bottom left in that slide, which is about, can you give me some dashboards? So can you show me if people are following the risk management process or not? That's not where the main benefit is. The main benefit is starting to preempt some of this. So we've been working with some clients recently. We've looked at 500 project variation notices, and 78% of that project variance, it didn't come from risk management. It came from things like change control. But we don't manage change control as a source of preemptive variance. And why not? Because it's all part of the same thing. So if we recast risk management as minimize the downside and maximize the upside, then we start to reimagine the entire process. So if that's the case, if we do start to reimagine it, do we need some people now who start to understand variance analytics instead of being sort of trained on traditional risk management? So that's the question for all of us. If we do, then what do those products look like in the future? So do we need some product managers who basically say, working with the professional bodies, do we take us from where we are today with things like traditional risk management and get a product roadmap to take us to variance analytics in the future? So we've done the same thing as well. So we looked at PMOs. So we looked at a next generation PMO. So I wrote a short book on this. It's available on our website. So just go to next generation PMO on there. And it's a short book and it's available for free. So we've just open sourced it. And this starts to say that the PMO will start to get fundamentally sort of reimagined through advanced data analytics. But that's not all. What we need to do is start to think about these problems that we're trying to solve in the future and where we are today. What can we do about smashing those together? So we need to look at the connection between the problems we want to solve and the data that we're harvesting today. They are misaligned currently. So can we start to align them? So that's through this concept of a project brain. So if we can then resolve those at a theme level, so we go at a functional level in terms of things like risk management, and then drill down into those specific use cases that we want to solve. That's when we've got a complete model then, it's a neural network for solving project delivery. So we're working on that through the UK as a collective. We're trying to drive those insights. So PMI talks about infinity as well. We've got our own version of that called Marvin. So Marvin's been trained on over 1,000 documents, policy statements, and some copyrighted books as well. So there's some people who said to us, you can have my book, ingest it into your model, etc. So we've open sourced that. That's available to people as well. So it's not behind any paywalls, etc. So what we're trying to do is to link that in future to some of these data trusts that I talked about at the start, which is where we start to pull the data on project delivery, and we can use that to drive the change. But it gets bigger than this. So I'll show you a slide next. So I went to a capability called Agent GPT, and I said to it, help me to plan and then execute the installation of mechanical and electrical equipment for a new build school. So watch this closely because it goes really, really fast. Right? I'm not speeding it up. This is real time, right? But it's a video. So let's go for it. So watch the speed of this. So this is like Chat GPT. So it's now spinning up each of these different steps one by one. So what it's now doing, as soon as it's solved one of the prompts, it then generates a new prompt itself. And then it generates the next prompt and the next prompt and the next prompt and the next prompt. So just imagine that you've got a sort of planning authority who's working with the survey department, who's working with something else. It is mind-blowing. So these capabilities, so in terms of Agent GPT, you get 5 spins on it for free. So that capability is truly astonishing. All right. So what we're doing now, so back to Andrew Ng, so he published something a couple of weeks ago about these things called agentic workflows. So what that's taken is the previous one, which is things like Agent GPT, but instead of this workflow where it just creates these prompts one by one, it would now say, let's take the engineer version of a GPT and connect it to the procurement GPT, which connects it to the architecture GPT, that connects it to the stress and structures GPT, etc. Each of those have been trained on their niche. So if you can then sort of train it on all the standards, etc., and put that into something called a graph network, so a knowledge graph, it means when we're querying it then, it's querying back to a statement of fact. So that takes down some of this hallucination and makes it more precise. And once we've got that, we've got these artificial intelligence bots just passing to each other in real time. So that means we can optimize for a project, we can optimize for carbon, we can optimize for time, we can optimize for costs and productivity and all these different things. We just say to it, these are the features that's more important for us. And that's when we start to drive it forward. So in terms of the UK, what we've tried to do is we tried sort of pull together lots of people. So that was in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in 2023, where we brought together about 300 people, is to start to solve some of these problems collegially and to come up with solutions. So our next hackathon is in June in Sheffield University. So these are some of the things we've been coming up with. So this is something from Hack 6. So it's working with Baker Hughes on the Christmas trees which sit underneath an oil rig. And they said to us, can can you identify where a project sort of estimate is wrong? So have you got variance against the estimate? And can you tell us where we get more sort of variance? So if the estimate was 10 days, the outturn has been 12 days, is it consistently 12 days, or does sometimes then it moves up to 25 days? So it's a massive plan, right? They've got schedule after schedule after schedule with all of this data in it, and somebody had spent 12 months working on it. So they're trying to work out, was the estimate right in the first place, and where's the variance likely to come from? So through a 2-day hackathon, they solved that, and they could tell them where the estimates are right or wrong in the first place, and where that variance is likely to come from, and which departments are creating that variance. Something else we did was scraping the internet, right? So this was through a hackathon. We scraped the internet, so you can take all the prices, material prices of steel and components and labor, etc., and you can pull all of that into a database and then start to present it in some of these sort of visualization tools. And once you've got that, then we can use it to link in with the BIM models, and that predicts when the sort of cost of an overall project is going to start to increase. These charts as well, so we can now get a situation where we can read a chart, which was previously a picture. It can read the information from 15 years ago from your documents that you've got and start to pull that into your data set as well. So that's another one we did. So this was HS2 High Speed 2. So it's a railway in the UK, and we said we get these extreme weather events. So in the UK, it was 40 degrees, which was our highest day for a long, long time. So that means that some people couldn't work. They couldn't sort of work on the railway, laying track, for instance. So that means they lost productivity. If we can connect some of these scheduling models with the weather forecast, then does that mean we can reschedule some of these work packages 3 or 4 days out? So we can optimize the gangs and we can optimize the workforce, maybe change their shift patterns so we can avoid some of those risks, those weather risks. So people solve that in 2 days as well. So through the power of collaboration, we can now start to create all of these tools in days rather than years. So for me, that's a game changer. So if we can do this at scale, then we'll change the world of project delivery. So from my perspective, this is reimagining project delivery. It's not just building on what we've got today. So that's it for me, Lina. Hope that inspired a few people. It's a brave new world.
Yes, it does. It does, Martin. But you're kind of cheeky. You actually get out of the base at the beginning, showing us the reality that we need to do a lot more and something different with regards to what we are having, the issues now. That's the reason why we are stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So thank you, Martin, for the presentation. So it seems like it confirms our suspicion that that there is some room to go and improve in terms of how we are actually dealing this, and AI is there to actually help us. So in areas where Martin mentioned was regard to risk management, because the data is there, so might as well we use AI to actually leverage on it, right? And we also need to go and look in terms of the roles now, because there is a change in how we actually do stuff. So with that, thank you, Martin. So we are over to the next speaker, Dr. Bhargav Dave, co-founder and CEO of VisiLean. So he will help us to understand on how AI fit into construction management, how data is key, and how with accurate deployment reap the true potential of AI. So now we are actually looking in terms of the practicality of AI in what we are doing now. Okay, over to you, Bhargav.
Thank you very much, Lina. Thank you. And thanks, PMI Singapore. Thanks, Harihara, for arranging this fantastic webinar. Already sort of feeling quite sort of enlightened with the previous talks by Declan and Martin. So they've provided a fantastic overview of what AI can do for the project management space. And I've been tasked with sort of taking you through some more sort of practical hands-on examples. So I'm going to focus on how sort of AI can benefit, in terms of running projects on sort of day-to-day basis. I'll start with sharing my slides. Okay. Can you please confirm if you can see my slides?
Oh, yes, now we can see it now. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just give a very brief background into what we do and what VisiLean stands for. So VisiLean is a modern project management system for construction. It's a digital project management tool, cloud-based. And it came out of research, which was done first in the UK when I was a PhD student at Salford University, working as a researcher there. And then it was incubated in Helsinki in Finland, where I did my postdoc and worked as a senior researcher. It is a confluence of 2 or 3 major streams. So lean construction principles, they are the underlying sort of fundamentals through which the whole project management engine runs in VisiLean. And it's connected to the product data, because we believe that in order to run projects successfully, you heard quite a lot of the challenges in the previous with the previous speakers. In order to attend to those challenges, we need to combine how we are building something with what we are building, which is actually the product. So we actually integrate the project management data with the model data. And one of the examples in how machine learning is actually helping us is actually connected to that. We then integrate all of this and we make it into a collaborative planning engine, so it's accessible by the entire sort of project team and all the stakeholders. There was a big sort of aspect that Martin just touched upon about efficacy of data, and he was actually talking about schedule optimization through machine learning, which is one of the hottest topics. Declan also spoke about nodes and link and these sort of companies which are working on schedule optimization. In project management, that's the holy grail, is where we are headed and how do we forecast better. And one of the biggest challenges we have seen, especially in a historical sense, is that the schedule data we've had has not been very reliable, because we've not been, so project management traditionally has been a very top-down sort of an enterprise. But when it comes to the data collection, that's a very bottom-up kind of an exercise. So how well our project schedules are then tracked and managed and monitored is one of the biggest challenges, which is again where we are working on. So what we do is democratize these sort of schedules, give them or sort of provide the schedules and the activities to the hands of the workers, and then collect that data back into the system to say, hey, where are we, by the way? Are we going on track? Are we actually doing what we're supposed to do? And if so, where is the project headed? So are there any delays? And if so, what can we do to actually mitigate them? We've been in operation since 2016. And some of the customers we work with globally, some of the examples of people like Mace and Alec, Lina, in Europe as well as in Asia. So we have been working extensively in India as well. We cover all sorts of projects, so starting from residential to commercial, all the way to large sort of industrial and infrastructure like metro projects, water utilities, and so on. So it covers kind of the whole spectrum. Our solution, as I mentioned, it sort of focuses on schedule management, so top-down sort of schedules coming from like P6 and MIIP project, and marries them with kind of the bottom level. How do we then manage those milestones and schedules? So marries them with the ground level schedule management through lean collaborative planning methods, and then extends them through mobile apps in the hands of the workers. So they provide updates based on how much work they've done and so on. Connects that with the models for visualization and control, and then provides sort of monitoring through data and through dashboards and things like that. Today, we're going to talk about how do you actually solve one very key problem in this sort of whole jigsaw. Before we do that, and I thought I'll also ask a provocative question here, is that how much trust do you have on your historical schedule data? Because quite a lot of the AI and ML engines today are actually based on the historical schedule data that people have been collecting over last sort of few decades. And as you know, the GIGO principle is like garbage in and garbage out. So how much trust you yourself have on the schedule data that you collected, your companies may have collected over the last few decades. So just park that thought, and maybe if you have, if you want to respond to that through the presentation, please feel free. I would love to kind of look at the chat later on and understand what people have there. But okay, so I'm going to focus more on then the use case we're going to talk about. So just a very brief overview in terms of construction 4.0, a lot of this, and 5.0 even now, a lot of the things we talk about, the AI, ML and other things, even the subsequent presentation we're going to have today, they are focused more in the construction 4.0 and 5.0 sort of revolution that we are going through right now. In so many ways, so construction went through this, and industry went through this 1.0, 2.0, starting from the mechanization and in the 1800s to then mass production and the assembly line in the 1900s, early 1900s, when Ford started the whole sort of assembly line process, which then paved way to the lean sort of management and focus on efficiencies, and then industry 3.0, so automation, robotics, and so on, all the way to what we're now talking about, cyber physical systems, IoT, and so on. When we talk about the ground level, though, especially the construction industry where I'm from, it seems to be stuck somewhere between 2.0 and 4.0. So there is a huge spectrum of projects which are still using some of the old methods when it comes to the ground level operations and execution, whereas on the design and maybe the sort of management side, we're trying to introduce quite a lot of the 4.0 and 5.0 principles. And there is a lot of tension between these two. And both Declan and Martin also spoke about, like, what are the sort of socio-technical aspects behind, use of these sort of new techniques, and what impact it's going to have on an industry such as construction, which is predominantly driven through people. So what will be the role of people, as we actually move forward? So in terms of the emerging trends in digital construction, especially from AI/ML point of view, we see a lot of this integration of model data and project data. I like to talk a lot about augmented decision making. So how do we augment? 5.0, Industry 5.0 talks a lot about augmenting human intelligence rather than replacing human intelligence. So again, another question is, do you believe in replacing human intelligence with artificial intelligence, or augmenting human intelligence with artificial intelligence? So these are also some of the questions that we're actually talk about. And then focusing on user experience. So if you're going to augment the decision making, then how do you make that process as seamless as possible? Because there is no point in bombarding users with sort of and drowning them in data if they can't really make sense of that data. So that data has to come at the time when they actually need it. Otherwise, there is no point. So one use case that I'm going to talk about is very specific, but you can think about, like, how do we then extend it to other cases? This one was a research that was funded by us, conducted by one of the master's students at a university here. And our simple problem statement was, in our sort of software, we have this discrete simulations to model construction sequences. So this is what helps us plan better, visualize what's coming as the work. So 4D is a very established sort of a process, 4D simulations. But traditionally, the challenge there is that it's a manual process. So somebody has to sit through and connect the schedule data with the BIM, the building information model, or the 3D data, in order to come up with the 4D simulation, in order to visualize how the project will be built over time. And then when the project's already ongoing, then comparing what was planned versus what is actually being built, to the comparison between plan and actual. And all of this is cumbersome. And what that means is that people give up on this, especially at a certain point, And what you get is basically like an old schedule data, which is then not matching the current status of either the schedule or the model itself. And so that tends to be one of the most challenging aspects. And what we want to kind of develop is something that helps people sort of automate this process or augment this process so that they can actually do this in a much easier way. So we came up with a model where it automates this. So this is a proposed framework for this automated linking. We used NLP, natural language processing, along with some of the algorithms. I'm not going to go too much into the technical details, but you can read the paper. I've shared the link there. So what we do is read the schedule data, read some of the key sort of elements from that, try and match that with the model data and the structure that's coming out of that, and then propose the automation, in terms of the links between, for example, the schedule item and the model item. And the way we do this is that we have certain parameters through which the model, sort of the classification engine sort of skims through, and it then sort of identifies these sort of keywords. So you can see here that there are certain sort of parameters like trade identifications. So which kind of model it is, what kind of element it is it an architectural element, structural element, MIPF element, concreting, masonry, and so on. What kind of, further down, what kind of element we're talking about? Is it a column? Is it a window? Is it a floor? And so on. What sort of locations? So in the model itself, you have certain locations. So you have basement, ground floor, first floor, or if it's in zones, then zone 1, 2, 3, or something like that, or chainages if it's a road. Then we start to kind of look at individual sort of data sets and say, if you think about like an example task which says 8th floor column concreting, then it starts to then match those sort of elements and starts to look at, for example, I'm looking at a concrete element. It's cast in place. The color is gray. That's typical in concrete. What category that I'm talking about? What family? I'm looking at. So it's columns, and then I have the data from the locations. So like 8th floor, and so on. So that's how the algorithm sort of works. We then let the algorithm start to kind of skim through the schedule data or run through the schedule data, and it starts to then produce this sort of sets. So it then creates matching property sets, and then it goes through, as you can see from the picture, it goes through the schedule data. So you can see from the data here, you have a multi-story residential project, and then it's divided. This is the work breakdown structure. So it's divided. You have the basement there. In the basement, you have the concrete ramp, you have the pour 2, and in the pour 2, you have a column and shear wall. And then the task says it's column and shear wall concreting. So already from this, the algorithm is deciphering these are the sort of the elements I'm going to focus on, and from that, I can actually conclude that the name should contain column, trade is a concreting gang, type is construction task, location is basement 42, so it's in basement, and the parents of these are these two, and then so this is my sort of ultimate so analysis of that. And similarly, it's running the same sort of analysis on the model, and then it's going through the model, and because there are a lot of properties there, so it can skim through those properties, and then it's going to kind of decipher some of the properties, and through that, it's coming up with again a strategy to classify them. And now it's found that okay, I found a concrete element which is called a column. It's at the basement level, and this is the offset. And so I think that these two should match with each other. And so based on that algorithm, based on that sort of an analysis, it's now suggesting to the project team, okay, here are the links that I'll come up with, by the way. What do you think about that? So it's basically helping people automatically identify, oh, so based on this column and shear wall concreting, these are the potential linkages that are found. And obviously, as you can see, it's also got two priorities. So priority 1 is this, but it's also found something that's not relevant. And obviously, from the visual cue, the users can say, okay, I think that the priority 1 are the relevant ones. I'm going to ignore the priority 2 because that's clearly a wall, it's not a column. And so I'm going to select all the blue ones and ignore the yellow ones. And by doing this, it's also learning. So the engine is now starting to learn that actually these are the selections that the user made. And based on that, it's actually the next time when you actually run this algorithm, it's going to improve. And it will start to make less and less mistakes. So when we started to run this sort of an engine, initially, the efficiency of this engine was, let's say, maybe 60 to 70%. It was making a lot of mistakes. This is what Declan and Martin were talking about as well. So initially it was making a lot of mistakes, but as we started to train the engine by providing with more and more data, as well as by training it on saying this is a good sort of a connection, this is not the right sort of choice, it starts to come to, in higher and higher in sort of efficiency. So now we've reached a point where it's actually almost say 90% to 95% efficient in terms of making the correct decisions about what tasks to link with what sort of model items. So already you can see that a very sort of time-consuming and boring process for people can be sort of automated by something that is sort of, I would say in this case, semi-automated, but eventually could go towards complete automation. And what can this mean? So again, going forward with what again Declan and Martin were talking about. So everything in machine learning, especially, and a lot about artificial intelligence, is driven by data. And data provides all the context in terms of what decisions you're going to make at any point in time, whether it's risks, whether it's schedule, whether it's cost, anything like that. It requires a lot of data, and data that is reliable, that's coming actually from the ground and not which is retrospective. Martin actually used a very relevant sort of a phrase here, that we actually say that running projects today with traditional tools is like, running the projects by looking in the rear view mirror or driving a car by looking in the rear view mirror all the time. It's impossible. You're not steering correctly because the data that's coming to you is old. It's not reliable. It's not collected properly. Whereas if you actually start to drive it more proactively, the data should really talk to you and it should be more current, more accurate. And so there are lots of different types of data. And once you collect it and connect it properly, you can start to drive the efficiencies on the ground. And the future decisions, which are then fed through the engine, are becoming more and more reliable. And so as I show you here, these are some of the examples from the live projects that we run. What you start to get is basically, again, what's coming back from the planning and what's also actually happening. You're reconciling what's happening on the ground and then visualizing, are we actually doing what we're supposed to do? And then getting these sort of simulations or these sort of visualizations to say, on the left side is the scenario that this is what our project should look like from the planning point of view. But on the right sort of window here, so we're comparing plan versus actual, what you're getting is this is what's the current situation on the ground. And when you click on the object, it tells you why the situation is on the ground in such a way. So the red sort of here in the visualization is signifying that task or that sort of activity has stopped. And when you click on it, it gives you the idea why it has stopped. And that data, once you again feed back through the history loop, gives you basically what again Martin was talking about, like the prediction capability for future. That if, for example, majority of our stoppages were due to, let's say, material not being there, and let's say last 6 months of data is telling us that in concreting 60% of the stoppages were due to manpower not being there, then we need to focus on these two aspects, and that's the kind of the analysis coming from that. These are some of the examples. So once we have the linkages done, you can actually leverage this to this project here is using what is called a Gold command room. So you can actually use this sort of information to run projects more effectively. This is a project based on which they won quite a lot of awards. So it's like a command and control center. So this data can then be used to actually run projects more effectively. you can actually track the entire project right from design. So here we actually collected or connected a lot of design information all the way to factory-based pre-production and production information, assembly information, and then handover and fit out and commissionings. So this was a data center project. And basically you can see that, lots of benefits coming out by sort of doing this, lots of, benefits in terms of handover, lots of benefits in terms of sort of compressing the schedule and so on. In this particular case, we were actually able to compress the schedule by 45% in certain activities, reduce the defects by 60%, and reducing the labor spend by actually 45%. So these are some sort of significant results. And all of this is going towards basically, again, delivering the project on time, within budget, and within the quality parameters that we actually strive for. So I want to stop here and give some time for questions and answers, and hopefully this was sort of useful and insightful to you. So thank you very much, and look forward to questions.
Thank you, Dr. Bhargav. Right, so thank you for this presentation. So now we know that there is a possibility of lean being applied to construction, because we all know that lean actually comes from manufacturing. But now with this possibility of technology and also AI, there is a possibility of applying lean to construction to reduce wastage and issues. But definitely the issue here is in terms of data, as what Dr. Bhargav have rightfully mentioned, so that quality data is essential for AI to actually work efficiently. So Dr. Bhargav, based on your poll, they're basically about coming to 20% that is not very confident with past data. So I would agree to that, in the sense that past data, there are some anomalies to it. So yeah, I think there is a lot of efforts that needs to be done with regards, and that's where AI can actually help us in this situation here. So I hope everyone is still awake. We have our last speaker, which is Casey Ho. He's ASEAN manager at OpenSpace.AI, which he will dive into the practical application of 360 reality capture and how this unlocks the range of benefits for project management. So Casey, over to you.
All right. Thanks, Lina. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. Now, I'm not going to talk about the AI or the machine learning. I think all the previous presenter has explained very well on the concepts and the usability, and also what is the futures looks like. I'm going to pretty much focus on the tech hall, what we call as a 360 reality capture. Now, for those who are not familiar with the 360 reality capture text, imagine is a Google Street View. I believe everybody used the Google Street View before, right? That's where the little human, you can just place it in any city, any roads, and then you can look at the surrounding. Now, the concept is the same, but you'll be looking at your construction sites instead. Now, Google Street View is very convenient, right? Can just log in and then look at all the 360 angles the same. Now, the concept is the same. You'll be looking at the site, all the 360 degree. You can go anywhere that you want to spot. Now, to get this kind of input out, relatively, people might be start to think that how difficult it can be. What is the post-processing? With the new technology right now, combinations of the AI, machine learning, and all other text, right? Relatively, the way how to produce this kind of output relatively is quite simple. I'll explain a bit details later on. Relatively, we just need a couple of steps, and you will get this kind of Google Street View result. Now, in OpenSpace itself, the 360 reality capture, we have paired up with two things: the hardware, which is the 360 camera, which is you can get it from any retail store, Lazada, Shopee, Amazon's. You can even get it from the retail store. Pair up with the vision engine, which is there's 4 types of technology behind, which is the computer visions, 3D reconstruction, machine learning, and slant tech. Now, combined with all these 4 tools, right, all the post-processing, all the manual processing will be taken over by the AI itself. Now, before I go into details, this is a very common industry misconception about the AI and also the tech. Actually, it's can't blame them. Actually, I started my career back in 1996, in 2006. So that is where the transition from 2D, 3D to become into the BIM environment. If everyone went through this kind of cycles, right, you will face how difficult the transition from 2D to become a 3D. Now, during that time, the technology is very limited. The tech is very limited. So for the industry to move into BIM, it requires a very huge skill sets. The technology, the tech, the hardware, you need a high performance PC, you need a high skill set to learn and to operate the BIM. Now, right now is the transition from the BIM environment into the AI, as what the Dr. Bhargav mentioned just now, to the industry 3.0, 4.0, and so on, right? Now, we pair up with the tech right now. Actually, people still have a very wrong perception saying that with all this kind of AI coming in, it becomes a burden to the industry. There's more work preparation is required. There's more needs, more skill set that is required. Actually, it is, if you're looking at it, right, actually it's not. To give you examples like the 360 reality capture. To get those kind of Google Street View output, relatively is very, very simple. For example, like the OpenSpace, you only need a 2D floor plan and a 360 cam, and then that's it. And this kind of pack, it can be used by anyone at the site. Supervisor, safety manager, QA/QC, even a general worker at the site that can operate. The reason is because all the post-processing, all the works that be done by the AI and the tech itself. The AI, the human input is very minimal. Give example, like you just need to turn on your cameras, link it into your mobile phone, and you just need to pin your starting point, and then that's it. You don't need any pre-path plan, you don't need any QR code, and you don't need any skill set to operate that. As long as you know how to read 2D floor plans, and you know how to use your mobile devices, and then you're good to go. Now, once you've done that, the next thing is you just need to upload into the server or into the cloud base, and the AI will take over. So you can see how simple it can be done with the tech or the AI nowadays, compared with 10 years ago where people need to learn about Revit, need to learn about Navisworks, need to learn about ArchiCAD, all those kind of tools, and requires tons of the skill set. If everyone ever came across like Dynamo, all those kind of visual programming, you need a certain skill set as well, right? Until today, I still have struggling to learn about the Dynamo, because you need a certain rules and also a certain understanding to operate that. But like what earlier on, what the Declan mentioned in the first presentation, right? That how the ChatGPT helps the user. You just need to key in a couple of words and the computer generates everything for you. So the industry is changing. Now, to give you a bit details on how to do captures, relatively is quite simple as well, and it's quite flexible. Either in human walk, vehicle, robotic, drone, any kind of a method is doable. I'll give you a very quick, simple example. Is recently in Singapore, we have one project that's where the minister will do the launching. The challenge is we couldn't get the approval to fly the drone on that area on time. So what we did here is we mount the 360 camera on the crane, and we swing the crane 360 degrees to simulate the environment just like the drone capture, which is from the top view or the bird eye view. So the tech nowadays, it become very flexible and very convenient for the industry to use. Now, to tie back the 360 reality captures into the project management environment. Now, typically, these are 4 use cases that be used by the industry nowadays. One is a visibility. So instead of you're looking at the 2D images, just the pictures and some of the reports generated from the Excel or project tools, you have a better true visibility on what you'll be looking at. Now, communication and collaboration is something that is already fundamental, but with the images, it will become more collaborative. I will share with you more in details with a live presentation later. Now, project management and quality control is also something that people are looking heavily with the AI or the technology that nowadays. Now, instead of showing to you on all those kind of slides and so on, I would prefer to show it to you on a live presentation. I'm glad that I have a couple of projects that the customer are willing to share it to the public. So I'm going to use one of the projects in Singapore to show it to you how the industry is using it. Now, before I go into that, just look at all these kind of images. Those project manager that's in the call, I believe this is the typical images that you receive from the site team. Or maybe this is the one that you will be supplying to the clients. A very decent, clear 2D images on the progress at the site. But everybody know is an unspoken reality that something that is messy or something that is not supposed to show is always behind the scene, behind the images. So the visibility actually is not truly there. And progress also is something that is delivered by the subcontractor. Subcontractor telling you that project is finished or the installation is finished 100%, and you have to take that number as it is, because there is no true visibility or there's no second opinion or the reports to show it to you what is the reality at the site. Now, I'm going to shift it to my browser. I'll show you how the things works. Now, if you look at the screen right now, this is one of the project. The project name is called actually the West Coast Nursing in Singapore. Actually, the project is already completed, and they have gotten the COF as well, certificate of fitness. Now, to operate this one actually is relatively quite simple. If you're looking at the image here, right, it's nothing different with the 2D images that you have seen day to day. But just like the Google Street View that I mentioned, actually all the view is a 360 images where I can rotate, I can pan, and I can look at the surrounding. There's something that you won't be able to get with the 2D images. You can imagine I can even click on any area or any location. The system will bring me to that space immediately. You know, just like the Google Street View, I can go a different floor plan. Like for example, if I want to go to the 7th floor, I want to see what is going on. And this is the status as of November 30th, which is back in 2022. This is how the site looks like. This is the progress. And let me just turn off this thing. Yeah. So instead of you're viewing the 2D images, right now, this is the better visibility on what is going on at the site. So you can imagine people are using this one for the site meeting with the site progress update to the client. We do have a lot of clients and project manager are using this one as the communication tool at the site nowadays, because they see that this one will give you a better visibility. And not only that, you can imagine, like, for example, like during a site meeting, you have issues. What will happen nowadays is there's an issue, there's an image, and the way how we communicate at the site meeting is we will talk verbally how to resolve it. But in reality, most of the time, we have to go back to the site physically to resolve it at the site, because we cannot imagine what is the issue about. But you can see over here, right? I can just tweak, go anywhere, and then I can start my discussion because I can see anything. And I can even pull out historical reports. I think just now Dr. Bhargav did mention as well that all this kind of historical data, how we're going to view that. Now, with this one over here, right, I can even tweak and say that, hey, I want to do a comparison on what is going on in the next 2 months, which is comparison between November 30th and a month later, which is the December 30th. Now, the AI will actually do the comparison for you, and I can view it side by side on what is going on or even the status. Like for example, over here, I can see that some of the cabling is up after a month, and all of this, I can see not only the progress, but also the issue. Like for example, if I raise, there's an issue here saying that, hey, there's a housekeeping issue prone to the safety, and then a month later, I want to see whether the issue has been resolved, has been cleaned up. For example, water pond here, there's a prone to the dengue, and I want to see a month later what is going on. And if the issue is still the same, I can always raise the issues, and then we can start to do a management over there, right? Now, tie back to the industry. I taking care of the Singapore market quite a lot recently, but I have a better overview on what is going on the ASEAN market. Now, not only Singapore, but Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, they start to look into BIM environment quite heavily. But one of the challenge in the industry, right, is we always have a challenge to tie back the BIM environment with the reality. But with the 360 reality capture nowadays, right, we can do this kind of things quite easily. Now, I can even do a side-by-side comparison to see what has been designed, what has been modeled against the reality. So as of December 29, this is the progress, and this has been developed during the design stage or during the as-built drawing. Now, I have a lot of clients is using this one for a lot of different kind of use cases. People are using this one for the site meeting, coordination meeting discussions. So you can imagine, like, for example, I can even say that, hey, there's a clashes over here. What is going on? Previously, I have to do that separately and then have to imagine what is at the site, what is being in the model. But nowadays, everything is quite easily on the tools. So I can even pan around and look at the surrounding. I can even go to any areas and I can look at the progress as well. Now, the other thing what we can do over here is what you're looking at here is just a visual photogrammetry. Now, for the past few years that a lot of people are start to using the data, like what Dr. Bhargav mentioned just now, right? How much trust do you have on your historical schedule data? So rubbish in, rubbish out. Now, currently, a lot of people submitting the progress, telling you the updates is only by number. So if the subcontractor saying that my installation complete 100%, you take it as it is. Because there's something that you cannot verify, you won't be able to identify. But one thing that doesn't lie, number can lie, report can lie, percentage can lie. One thing that doesn't lie is always the images, because there's no way for you to temper these images. Of course, nowadays, we do have all those kind of Photoshops and everything, right? But one of the policy that 360 images, you cannot tweak it, whatever they uploaded, the AI will take over. Now, one good thing about here is we have trained the AI to start to detect on the elements at the site. So you can imagine, like, whenever you do a capture, the AI will start to generate the report telling you that what is the progress at the site in real time. So give you an example, progress as of September 7, 2023. I have 3 buildings here, level 1, building 1, building 2, building 3. Building 1, level 1 to the roof, what is the percentage for the drywalls, for the ceilings, for the electrical, concrete, mechanical, so that will give you more in details on what is going on. Like what Declan on the first presenter mentions, will it cause a risk if the machine learning alert us on any risk of delay or any potential issue? This is one of the good examples. You can imagine over here that the AI will tell you, right, based on the trends and also the historical data. You are most likely you will be behind the schedule for building 1 level 2 on your drywalls. Ceilings, you are behind 1%. Those are minor, which is maybe is not too critical, but on the building level 2, you are 36 behind schedule. So there's something that you worth for you to explore and go into much details and see what is going on. Now, the AI even can tell you saying that which area that is completed, which area that is still pending and so on, they will highlight it for you. And one thing that nothing can lie is images. So the reports can show it to you 100%, 95%, but one thing that doesn't lie is the images. I always can verify from the images. If the AI is saying that this part is completed with the drywall, I can even see clearly that the drywall is installed. And if any area that the system saying that is not installed yet, for example, like all this area, I can even go in and verify what is going on. So you can see clearly, the image is pretty dark over here, right? You can see clearly that it's not even finished yet. So the finishes is not done. That's why the AI is saying that it's not done yet. So with all this, there's always a progress chart to look at the trend, what is going on, where is the status and so on. So this is one of the examples how the AIs can help the industry. Instead of you doing the human manual process to go to the sites to check on the status and so on. So right now, the project manager or the supervisor, they can focus to resolve the issue instead of looking where is the issues and so on, right? So that is one of the way how we can collaborate and live together with AI. Now, I give you another examples, right? This one is from our partners. Now, one of the topic that people always talking about is how AI and tech helping you in terms of your day-to-day works. Like what Lina mentioned in the beginning of the webinar, right? Should we worry AI to replace human sooner or later? There's always a discussion whether the AI will heavily replace the human in future. Now, these are the top 3 things that people always talk about. AI will replace human work. Workers is always spend their time identifying the hazard, the issue. And the third thing here is people start talking about construction will become a fully automated industry. Now, the reality is not. The AI always is augmented human capabilities. They make the construction safer and more efficient, but it doesn't mean that they will replace the human works. Because of the third points here, the human expertise is still required in the industry. So the AI can learn the historical data and then the machine learning, they can remember the trends, they can give you an alert. But at the end of the day, it's still the human expert or their experience to define whether the issue or the delay is acceptable or something that is not acceptable. One thing that I always have a discussion with my colleagues and also my customers is where that we don't think that AI will replace the human, but whoever that is utilizing the AI for their day-to-day job, those will survive. But those who think that the AI will replace the human, that's something that they will fall behind sooner or later. Now, to give you one example, that we do have one partner called Imagilo. They're more focused on the safety scenario. So you can imagine, right, you as a safety manager, how many safety issues that you can detect in a day? So the moment that I walk to the south, something happened at the north, at the east, at the west, you won't be able to know because you're not there. You only have a pair of eyes, which is only focused on what is in front of you. Even something happened behind you, you won't be able to view the arrow. Now, relying on the AI, right, the auto detection, they can immediately pick up there's somebody went into the intrusion zones, there's a missing barricades, work at height. All these kind of things, we have to rely on the AIs to detect. And it's a real time. So you can imagine if I install 10 CCTV at the site. So we have 10 additional pair of eyes to help you to check on all these issues. And can you imagine it's a 24/7? Compared to us, we only work 9 to 6, or maybe even beyond that. And you won't be able 24/7 facing or looking at the site. So there's something that how we can utilize the AIs to do. So some things that whenever the AI detects there's a safety issue, they will send a notification to the safety manager. And the most important thing here is where that the safety manager right now, they won't be looking at the issue anymore, but they will find an issue to resolve it. They will look at the issue, how to resolve it. They will look at the trend, how to prevent it. Now, showing to you one of the live example, a quick one. Now, give you an example, this is one of the projects in Singapore as well. Like the incident happened in this week. There's a 25 issue happening this week, and there's a 14 risky location on the area. Now, the most important thing is the summary of the report. So you can look at the trend, where is the peak? And now as a safety manager, based on your experience, you will start to visualize why there's a peak on every month. What happened? Is it because of the weather? Is it because of the workload? Is it because of the time or anything? So you can start to look at the trend and start to do a prevention. Safety is something that you should be looking at. The prevention is not prevention instead of finding the resolution. Because the time that you find resolution is already too late, right, for the safety. So for example, all these reports is something that is very useful for people to do the analyze what is going on, how we can prevent it and so on. Give you examples like for examples over here, I'll be looking at the camera. So you can imagine, compare with 5 years or 10 years ago, you only can look at what is in front of you. But right now, by one glance, I'll be looking at more than 13 cameras, and I'll be looking at what is going on. And I'll be relying on the AI to tell me, saying that how much activity percentage on each of the camera. So those in low percentage, I won't be looking at it at all. 0%. That means that there's no activity. I'll be looking at those in high activity, like 26% or 6%. And from all those activity, I'll be looking or focusing more on the issue. Now, all this issue, I can even go in, the AI will even tell me, saying that, hey, this is what we have, what we detected at that time, that somebody walked somebody walked without the PPE. Now, this is where the part that your expertise will comes in. So with experience and your expert, you will analyze, saying that, hey, this is acceptable because this one is a no PPE zones or anything. So there's some things that we still require the expert to visualize what is going on. It's something that is seriously, you can raise the ticket. If it's not, you can pull back and say that this is a false alarm, this is acceptable, and you can use all this as a preventive mentions sequence and so on in future, right? So with that, I'll end my presentations now. Thank you, everyone. So Lina, hand over back to you.
Hey, thank you, Casey. I think that is very insightful. Now, at least we know that there's a lot of tools that actually give AI the eyes that is needed to help police and verify status and conditions on site. So with that, I think we will go and back to the panel discussion. So I would like to have our speakers, Casey, Bhargav, Dr. Bhargav, Martin, is he around? And Declan to be on, to have the camera on. Yeah, so that we can actually proceed on to the panel discussion. Mr. Hari, yeah, I will need you to be online too, so that we can, any question with PMI can actually be addressed by you. Okay. So now we are over to the panel discussion, and we have a very healthy, let me see, I'm not too sure whether, I think I can actually do a share screen. Hold on. Okay, so yes, thank you so much. So let's take on the question. We have a very healthy pool of questions here, so I don't have to get and figure out what question to get and ask you guys. So looking at this, the first question, is it possible that AI will make project board redundant? Will governance and decision making be done by AI? So who want to go and take on this challenging question? I mean, we already make sure that we already say that AI is not going to take over our job. It's supposed to facilitate, it's supposed to, to help, to assist. But looking at this, I wouldn't say the project board will be redundant, right, Dr. Bhargav?
Yeah, I would love to answer this one. So whenever this comes up, my go-to answer is that until you see robots taking over project sites, whatever kind of projects they can be, say typical construction site, if you see robots taking over entire sites, that scenario is quite far away. So as long as there are human beings running the projects, you still will need project boards, governance and decision making to be done by humans. But as we saw from most of the presentations today, it will be augmented by AI in most cases.
Right, thank you, Dr. Bhargav. Oh, it seems like Jugal would like to go and pitch in. Jugal, would you like to go and sit in the panel table?
To say who is Jugal? Jugal is our MIIP co-team member.
Yeah, I think he's itching to go and answer some of these questions. He loved to go and take some challenges here. Okay, so our next question. So I guess we have already answered. Anybody want to go and take on the first question with regards to the project board and the governance and decision?
Lina,
If not, then we will.
I'll just make a quick comment, Lina, if I will.
Yeah, sure.
I would actually say that governance becomes more important now, not more or automated, but it actually becomes more important when we start to introduce AI into our projects. Governance becomes more important, not less important.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't think that it should be done by AI unless they are of a certain capability that is able to get and, to have that conscious thinking with regards to that. Do you agree, Declan?
Yeah, I think we're a long way. I think we're a long way off ever fully automating that. Even if we ever should do, is a separate question. But I think in this age of AI, a human AI augmenting humans is the way to go.
Yeah, I think there was a chat in there was a portion in the chat that was talking about AGI as being conscious thoughts. Whether is it possible for AI to actually replicate human conscious thinking capability, which you rightfully mentioned that it is not it's not being it will not be able to teach AI to do that. So there is not a possibility that AGI would mean conscious thinking on the part of robots.
Yeah, I mean
Just
that's a really interesting question. At the risk of going off on a tangent, whether AGI actually means the AI system is sentient or conscious, because that's a quite an interesting conversation, and perhaps a conversation for a separate session, Harry. But so and when we think about AGI, we have to remember as well that what we're talking about there is artificial general intelligence, and general is the key word there. Because at the moment, AI is extremely good at specific tasks. And we've seen them at the moment for doing predictions in project management. We've seen various scenarios of that. What it's not good is at generalizing that intelligence. And that's kind of what we're aiming towards. And we had a conversation about that earlier on, whether we'd reach it by 2030 or not.
just to add on the same topic, we talked about the decision making, right? So I just remembering my master's program with NTU in Singapore, and we talked about replacing a judge with smart intelligence. That time 2002, we don't talk about artificial intelligence. We talk smart intelligence when I was doing a CIM program with NTU. So what we lacked that time, 2002, the digitalization concept, although it's there, but not to the phase where we are. We talked about heavily, Bhargav was saying, and a lot of the people in the speakers are talking about the data quality. Once you have the quality of data and how you mine it, and then comes artificial intelligence as a mechanism how to drive and make decisions or options for human to make productively to get in a shorter time.
Yeah,
That's something
agree.
that came to
So
the mind.
yeah, it's still at the infant stage at this moment now with regards to AI. We are still feeding it with information and all that, and it's trying to kind of figure out how to actually relate and do the analysis required that would equate to that of a human. I mean, to our mentality. But I don't see it anytime soon. But eventually it will. But it's just a matter of when. Yeah. Okay, back to the question panel. I think we don't try to. Okay, the next question. Besides ethic, this is by Linda. Thank you, Linda. Besides ethic and complexity in hold on. Why is my okay. All right, sorry. Yeah. So what is okay? That I think that is already answered with regards to the AGI thing. Okay, so Linda, back to Linda's question. Besides ethics and complexity in circumventing governance challenges with the use of AI, what would be the next burning challenge to navigate? I mean, we already have policies with regards to data sharing, with regards to AI not being, not totally taking over our jobs. So there is a kind of like a boundary where you can use AI into, but then there shouldn't be one that will actually, put threats in terms of our humanity, in terms of our beliefs and so on that. So I think what other areas that will need, that is a challenge with regards to AI, because I think there is such a gray line when we actually apply AI into everything. And we really want AI to actually do everything, and a lot of people are thinking AI is like a miracle tool.
Lina, I'll make one comment on that, maybe, if you like, in answering that question. I think one of the next challenges we need to face, and we've touched on it a couple of times in the presentation, is recognizing the place for AI, and that it's there to augment humans, and we haven't quite figured that out yet. You know, I like to think of when I'm looking at tools like large language models or chat GPTs, they're not really there to replace you. What they are, for me anyway, is they're like a very capable, enthusiastic intern or executive assistant just dedicated to you. So they help you, you know, but it doesn't replace you, and you still got to, you're still responsible for the veracity of what it produces, but it does a lot of that sort of grunt work for you. But I think that's the next challenge, is for us all to realize, well, how do we use AI and where does it sit in the team? You know, is it a co-worker or is it an assistant? Or God forbid, it's our next manager, you know, an AI as our next manager. And I think that's, and I don't have the answer for that, but I think it's something that we need to consider, where AI sits almost in our organizational hierarchy.
Yeah,
I think
agreed.
I'll also add a few things. So that's Declan, spot on. Actually, how do we use it, and what sort of functions does it fulfill? That's a very good sort of thing. The other one is in my opinion, even more challenging, is the fact that, well, you, Declan, in your presentation mentioned it can also fail, and when do you know that it has failed? Because we, think about, again, when the GPS systems came up. Before that, in England, if you were driving, you had a whole map booklet in your car, and you would look up the map booklet. You knew how to use it, and you knew how to get there by using the maps, the physical maps. When the GPS systems came up, now we have Google Maps and everything. We completely rely on that. Now, if, similarly, if AI is going to lead you towards the wrong path, if it is monopolized and used by large sort of corporations, when even it's biased, you mentioned, Declan, about bias, if it's a commercial bias, if it's some kind of political bias, if it is entrenched within the model, how do we even know that it's actually entrenched? How do we even know whether it's reliable, the answer that's coming to us? And if it's going to become more and more dependent on the model, that kind of the critical lens is actually missing. We don't really know. So that's actually, again, another major factor there, that what's the reliability of this, and whether, even if it's reliable, what's the bias there? So those are also some of the things we should maybe worry of.
Yeah, that proved to show that at this current moment now, we can't give the whole rein to AI. So human intervention is still needed to actually police what AI is doing, to make sure that it's actually correct, right? And it's not going against ethics and governance and stuff. Yeah, especially security. Right. Thank you.
One more point is, it's all interlinked with the quality of data what you put in. So it's like, we used to have a common language, what garbage in, garbage out. It's like, if you have in-quality data and you can't extremely proud of applying AI, and you think you have a quality outcome, that's something we have to understand ourselves. If someone data source is not there for X company, and they have to leverage on some partners how they can get data officially and ensure that they are putting in their production tool. Say, for example, PMI is using PMI Infinity based on our last MIIP program, which talked about AI, and now within few months we see Infinity kind of platform is there. So what they do is they have a quality of data, which PMI is all like vetted data, and we have everything is documented right from many years. And they apply LLM, and they have a very good tool which can source which can even find a source of which article and which book is being referred to that level. So which means the quality of data what you put in is what you get it out.
Yeah, totally agree with you.
I think
Right.
there's maybe I want to add one more thing is there's
Yes,
a lot
Casey.
of time there's a lot of times that people might be forgotten is in terms of the education as well. You see nowadays in the working environment, everybody is talking about the AI, but you look at the younger generation, what they've been taught at the school are still very outdated. I think there's some things that is worth for the industry to start to explore, right? Not only for the workforce training, but also to train our younger generation how to utilize and make use of the AI, not only for their studies, but also for their future careers, how they can utilize the AI to make use of it.
Yeah, I think there is a need to actually go and build up our next generation with regards to AI. I mean, for us, we are fire starters. We actually go and create, application. How is AI being used and all that. But in order for it to actually follow through, our next generation will need to be taught, how to actually bring this forward. And according to what Dr. mentioned was about the ethic and the complexities, the governance and stuff. Right. So, okay, we move on to the next question. This is something interesting. Okay, if risk management does get replaced with variance analytics, how would you suggest that we package or deliver the new discipline? I think this will involve with Casey also, because Casey, you have already shown us with regards to like reality capture. There is a possibility where reality capture can actually tie in with AI in terms of risk management. So how is it that we are going to get and package this? Is this going to be like a new discipline, or how is this going to be packaged in terms of like project management or the project delivery?
I think to me is there's a lot of argument about these things, right? First of all, is more I would say that it's more like when people talking about whether should we trust the AI's results and how much we can trust the results and so on. So the first thing I think that what the industry should do is to reframe back the terminology. What we are talking about, the variance analytic is more accurate, more considered user-friendly terms to the construction industry, right? But I would think that the proactive safety analytics or the predictive safety insight are more accurate in this way. Like I mentioned earlier on, is we should utilize the informations to replace whatever the current traditional risk management. Instead of we are looking at the how to resolve the issues, we should have more predictive safety insights or the analytics to prevent the issues happening. Not only on the safety, but also the project delays, the potential delays, and all this is driven by the historical data, right? Like for example, if I capture the data of the weather data for the past few years, so most likely for this year, I will know that what is the trend will happens, when is the heat wave, whether it's a raining season, and because of that, how we can make use of this kind of data to have a better projection on the project to reduce the delay and also any risks.
Right, Jugal, I saw you raise up your hand.
Yeah, no, so I agree with what Casey is saying, and what I see is, let's say, variance analytics and AI, all of these are components of risk management, right? So we use data and analytics to help us better manage the risk and be able to preempt the risk and in some cases avoid and minimize that risk as well, right? So risk management currently it's very human perception based, right? Experience based, right? So if let's say Hari is an expert manager who has done lots of projects, so he knows what are the potential risks, and then he would then articulate those risks and bring it forward. But then if you're a new manager, if you're doing such projects for the first time, then you can rely on AI and come up, use variance analytics and stuff like that to help you better manage your risk. Right. So it's not that, from my perspective, variance analytics is not going to change risk management or replace risk management, but it is a component or aspect of risk management, which helps us become more data driven.
All right. Dr. Bhargav, do you agree to this? I mean, in terms that with risk management, with the likes of a virtual reality capture to help mitigate risk and to actually predict it. How does this actually in terms of packaging it and in terms of the project management and delivery will actually be of advantages or added value to the project?
Absolutely, I agree with both Casey and Jugal. One thing I would like to add is that this sort of methods. So there is risk management and there is monitoring risk. So the AI based, especially what Casey sort of presented, that's helping you monitor whether you're actually mitigating the risks as you had planned or not. And AI can actually, as Martin was actually highlighting, can AI help us identify risks inherent in the project using the past data? So I think that could in itself become a package that you can actually deliver. But again, the systems and the reliability of the systems will become kind of like a major factor there. Because something like risk, you want to be absolutely sure that the data that's coming to you, you can actually trust that data. So as the time passes, as the engines become more and more reliable, I think that package, as you will become more sort of acceptable. Chandra.
Lina, just to add on point. I mean, I'm not going to repeat what other speakers have mentioned. One point here is, the risk management is a big subject for AI dependent risk management.
Yes, it is.
Like how Jugal mentioned. See, basically, you have experienced professional people, professional project managers can list out all the risk, and it will spend like a couple of hours to make a risk log. Right. So when you have AI generative risk logs, it will be, if you put the context of the project, you may get the list within few seconds. Then how you want to take it up, to the next level, it will naturally improve the productivity and also help them better execute the job in very less time, forcing the risk ahead of based on what is the risk happened in the past projects. That's a big help, which you can't do it manually. Or human can take more time, but AI is a great gift if it's programmed well. Yeah.
Yes, and Timothy also mentioned that it actually helps to mitigate. Let me see, where is it? Yeah, to help it identify risk, and people still need to take action and balance risk versus reward. Yeah, that is true. That is true. So that's where AI, with the help of AI, actually help to facilitate this, and also in a much faster manner as what we traditionally do. Yeah. Right. So the next question is about criteria or rubric that define that we achieve AGI by 2030. Do we have that? Martin, do we? Oh, Martin is not in. Okay, this one I think we will need to kind of get back on that. All right.
I can jump in on that if you want to.
Oh, you can? All right.
Yeah,
So do we have that criteria rubrics?
So in a way we do, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, and it's the difference between AI and AGI. So AI being artificial intelligence and AGI being artificial general intelligence. And so what I mentioned just earlier, we have fantastic tools at the moment which can do specific tasks. So say something like AlphaGo, which can now play, the game of Go, or can now be applied to, beating grandmasters in chess. But it's very specific at that. If you ask that particular program to create a story about dinosaurs, it would do a worse job than a 7-year-old would do. So it's not a general intelligence. And so that's where really we're talking about with AGI by 2030, where we have a tool that can perform exceptionally well at or above human level intelligence across multiple applications and domains. So that's really my take on the criteria or rubrics for AGI.
Yeah, now that you mentioned about chess, I was actually reminded of the documentary how AI was being built to go and play Go, the Japanese chess. Yeah, and it actually opened up the Go master's mind in terms of the move that the AI actually did was like very unorthodox, but it's workable. So it actually opened up their creativity and think out of the box. So AI actually helped them with that. Yuga, you raise your hand. Yes.
Yeah, no, so this actually is a very interesting questions, and a lot of, let's say, scientists and experts in this area are also debating and discussing it, right? So I don't think those criterias or rubrics are defined yet, and they are being formulated. But at the end, I think the core question will be, let's say, even if we have AGI, how do we want it to benefit us, right? So things like that would be discussed, right? So what would be the benefit of AGI to humanity be at a larger context, right? What will it help us, right? And then also look at what capabilities do we want that to be, right? So let's say currently it's very uh, it does not have any emotion, right? But then we want to articulate it in a different way. So what capabilities do we want it to perform and be more like human like? So do we want it to have a conscious of some kind, right? So those are the questions that needs to be asked, and then what are the cognitive or non-cognitive or metacognitive tasks that we would want an AGI to perform. But all of those will be based on the things that we want it to do, right? Because AGI at the end is being programmed by humans, right? So we will probably be inputting all of that, right? So for us, let's say if as a project management community, if we have AGI, what are we going to do with it? Right? So those are kind of the questions that we also need to ask. So it's a valid question. It's a great question, but I don't think we have the answers to this question right now. But as a community, we should be thinking about it for sure.
Yeah, agreed to that. So we move on to the next question. We're talking about the top 3 enabler for project managers to successfully deploy AI in day-to-day work. And I think this one is actually linked together with the advice on simple start to implement AI into project management. I think it was in the chat that was raised up. How do you actually apply, I mean, in terms of generative AI, does it need to get an require like BIM to be in the project? And then the question is that it's all based down to how do you want AI to actually help you create, right? To create and to generate what is it that you want to be done in project management. So that's the thought that needs to be identified, as what Yuga has rightfully said, is what is it that we actually want, and how do we actually apply it. So what would your take with regards to the 3 enabler and the simple, I mean, basically, if you want to get and start AI in a project, what is the simplest way to get and start on that? Who would like to start? Declan?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that. It's a really interesting question. As part of the studies that I'm doing at Oxford at the moment, we came up with something called the 4Cs method for actually evaluating an organization's readiness for implementing AI, and also a good structure for a project management or project manager to follow the initial steps to take. So the 4Cs are the letter Cs. They're the constituents, capabilities, culture, and compliance. So if you start out with those 4, I think it's a really good starting point. So the constituents are your stakeholders. So mapping out who your stakeholders are for a particular AI project or AI initiative. You know, the capabilities then, that's the skill sets. So as a project manager, do you have access to machine learning experts, data scientists, etc., to help you implement this AI tool? Then the culture as well of the organization. Is the culture of the organization one that's amenable to that iterative approach that might be necessary for AI, because you mightn't get it right first time. You almost need that iterative approach or the agile mindset to say, we'll try something small first and then we'll iterate after initial successes. And then compliance as well. So depending on, we're obviously focusing on the building industry and construction today, but depending on the industry you're in and the organization you're working for, there's different regulations, different laws that are applicable to you. So that's where you touch on compliance. So that'd be a good starting point, I'd say, to project managers, those 4 C's: constituent, capability, culture, and compliance.
Okay, good to know. Dr. Bhargav, what about you? I would assume that you'll be looking in terms of data, what data you have, and then how will AI actually drive that?
Yeah, so I was gonna say that Declan was spot on with that, because the first thing I actually have in my sort of answer for that is people. So he mentioned stakeholders. So it's about really knowing who your stakeholders are. But before that, my kind of go-to thing, I mentioned this earlier, is that an AI, if you think about like a fantastic tool, and I say that, like, in terms of our research circles, sometimes we talk about this: when you have a fantastic tool, in your hand, it's like a hammer and a nail kind of analogy. So, when you have a great hammer in your hand, the whole world looks like a nail. So, how do you identify the correct nails to hammer? So mainly, as a project manager, what are your key challenges? Where are you failing, or what sort of problems do you really want to solve? And again, what Declan said, talk to your stakeholders. What problems do they? Because as a project manager, your job is enabling those people in performing the projects in a more efficient way. So talking to stakeholders, identifying the key problems that you want to solve should provide them the framework in order to, okay, here are the places. Now, in these, which ones are actually more mature in terms of handling with AI, and then unleashing the other C's, as Declan mentioned, because you need all of them. Because without that, it's impossible for you to kind of deploy. And beyond that, like you mentioned, in terms of data, so what quality data do you have in your hand? Because again, we actually did research with organizations on big data, people who had been very mature in collecting data through the years. And we analyzed for one very large industry, and we published actually a paper on that. It was so heartbreaking for them to realize that the data they had collected for last 2 decades was missing quite a lot of the key criteria which would qualify it as good quality data, based on which you would actually train your algorithms. And it's then again working with those stakeholders to say, how do we collect this data? You mentioned about the chat, people were actually talking about all of this is good, but our biggest challenge is that data doesn't come back from the field. Whichever project management field you're in, at the end of the day, you're relying on people to feed that data back into the system. Or then Casey, as he was mentioning, the deployment of automated engines and agents to collect that data. So, in some cases, you can deploy artificial intelligence like, vision-based systems, sort of computer vision and photogrammetry to collect this data back. So if you have that, then that will sort of feed into something like this. Hopefully that answers some of the question here.
Yeah, I hope so too. All right. So Hari, I'm looking at the time. Do we have room for one more question?
Yeah, one
Or
more.
last final question?
Yeah,
Or two
we
more
can.
questions?
Yeah, 1 or 2 we can. We'll start in another 3 minutes. You can go. Actually.
All right. Okay. So let me see. The question with regards to electricity and power, because as AI matures, there will sure to be what you call a requirement for data and all that. So there will be a huge amount of increase of data centers and electricity and powers built around it. So now the question is that, are we taking too much advantage of it to a point that it becomes out of control in terms of electricity and data center spaces and stuff?
Probably I can tell something what I'm aware of. See, nowadays data centers are growing, and you have shortage of power everywhere. And Singapore also, there is a there is a regulation which controls data centers, how many you can have in Singapore even. So definitely a lot of data centers are needed because everybody is jumping onto data. And how do you, because those times, those days, we used to have a small phone and you have 32 MB card and we used to take a lot of pictures. And now, that is nowhere. We are talking about GBs. So where if everyone want data, of course, the data infrastructure has to go up. There is no choice on it. But coming to this question, of course, answer is yes. I think you have to accept and see what you are yielding out of applying AI. Not everything you need to have AI, but that is more of a case study and a business case what you want to achieve.
Yeah, I feel that this one, it all matter of demand, because as long as there is a demand for AI in terms of data and everything, there will be people to actually go and find solution with regards to electricity and data centers and stuff. I mean, look at in terms of memory, we are already the last time that I heard is giga. Now we are actually in deca terabyte, right? Then in terms of data centers, now they're actually exploring putting data centers in in the sea, so that it doesn't actually take on too much power to go and cool it down. Yeah, so that there is a solution to it, but at this moment now, I think this is not too much of a worry at the moment. You just need to go and worry in terms of how do we actually first leverage on AI with regards to what we do in our day-to-day, because we do have a lot of data. Now the thing is that we need to get and look in terms of how do we clean the data, because we do have a lot of dark data around now. And we are trying to get re-educate our clients, our stakeholders with regards to what are necessary data, because necessary data to one person might be different for another person. So this is also another issue that we need to get and look into. Then once we have this clean up, then I think with regards to power and data centers and all that, it will be resolved. What do you think?
I think we should go to the next question. Last question.
Yeah, I think this one, yeah. Okay, so yes, Casey, you have your hands up.
Yeah, no, that's a quick one. Suddenly it triggered me because recently I bring my daughters to for an event that is organized by the Marina Bay Sands in Singapore. It suddenly triggered me how to connect this thing. To me, is just a quick summary is consuming energy and also the power for all these data center to generate the data, to analyze the data is I would believe it's a necessary, but I think both things will come hand in hand. Industry is also talking about sustainability. A very good example is how the Marina Bay Sands is using the renewable energy to recycle the energies and so on, and how they're using the biodiversity for the sustainability. So as long as these two go hand in hand, I think we are more than capable in futures to support the powers that is needed for all this kind of data center, all this kind of power. But at the same time, we can maintain the sustainability for the whole world and so on.
Right. Thanks, Casey. Okay, so I need the time. So our very last question, we gone through what you call a round table. So in terms of insights on how AI will benefit predictable project management delivery. Okay, I need one of you, all the speakers to actually put down their thoughts with regards to the insight on how AI will benefit. Starting with Declan.
Can you show the question there, Lina?
Insight on how AI will benefit predictable project management delivery.
I think we've seen that it's going to happen in multiple ways. You can see that it's everything from ChatGPT helping us to communicate better to all the AI tools out there that are going to help us make better and more accurate predictions. And I guess kind of as a final parting note, just to reiterate that whole concept of AI augmenting us as humans and project managers and not replacing us.
Thanks, Declan. What about you, Dr. Bhargav?
Same as Declan. I think there are so many ways to reach nirvana through AI, it seems. So to me, I mean, it's towards orchestration, as what, kind of some of the presentations talked about. We're more and more going towards intelligent agents, helping us then augment some of the tasks that we as human beings have been sort of carrying out. But more importantly, in terms of predictability, things where human beings are sort of, it's too difficult for us to look at, especially risks and things like that, when it may be too complex to kind of scan through, like we just discussed, gigabytes and gigabytes of data. It's not possible for human beings to kind of scan through that data to identify where the pitfalls may be. This is where AI will help us to kind of scan through that data and tell us where the problems are coming so that we are better prepared. So in my eyes, being proactive compared to being reactive, and then trying to tackle those challenges by sort of this sort of, information that's being presented to us by sort of AI will help us. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Bhargav. Okay, Casey, your turn. So what's your insight for AI? How it will benefit in project management delivery?
I think everyone agreed that the AI is the future, and we're going to live with the AI. It's a matter of time how we're going to utilize the AI and how to empower the AI. I think moving forward, people are looking into three things, right? The data-driven, all the decision will be data-driven. Instead of back then, it's something that's plucked from the sky based on experience, but now everything is based on the data. Project predictability is also another thing, right? Because we have all the historical data, we have a better, higher accuracy in predicts what's going to go on upcoming, how we're going to mitigate the issues, how we're going to resolve the issue. There's some things that everything will be to achieve a better outcome. But there's two things that I think the industry should be considering. One is data quality. I think everybody is talking about rubbish in, rubbish out, right? No matter how intelligent the AI, it always depends on what the data is going to be input. But I believe over the time, the data will become more improving from time to time. The second thing is, I think I did mention earlier on, is the human expertise. I think it's remained crucial. I implement a lot of tech into a different industry, different projects. I think human expertise is still something that is crucial, and education is still needed to the industries.
Yeah, agreed to that. All right. So last but not least, Jugal, would you like to add on a quick one on the insight?
Yeah, I kind of all the speakers have covered all the points already, right? So there are a lot of things, but I guess the only thing that everyone should be aware of is that AI and the developments in AI are going to grow and grow at a much faster pace than what human capacity has to adapt. So it is important that you stay up to date with everything that is happening and see what the constantly ask a question, what is in it for you, right? So does it impact you, and how it is likely to impact you? Humans and the human intervention is not going to go, right? And AI, whatever we see, it's a tool, right? So it's like earlier we used to go to library to look for information. Now we search on Google and it gives us everything. So this is the next step in the evolution of technology. So it's just a tool, and see how you can best use it for your daily purpose.
Agreed. There is no going back. There is no going back. I mean, we are going forward. There is no going back to the traditional already. So we need to change. So yeah. So thank you so much. Hari, I'll leave to you to the final insight and also to the closure.
Okay, thanks, Lina. And first of all, let me answer the question before we go to the final thank you note for everyone. What I think is, the generative AI is where we are in, and I'm just comparing our last session about AI and now, few months apart, and now we are talking about on a very advanced level of things happening in a very fast way. And the generative AI is one thing which is happening now, but the predictive AI and the tools is going to come up. More tools are going to be in the market. That's what I think from the PMI research and articles what I'm reading. And you can see more benefit on the risk, on the schedule, on the estimate. So these are the three major players where you will get benefit, direct benefit, because all these things are time consuming. When you really want to get out of something, if you have to do a traditional way, what if you have applied AI and get something out in a very faster manner? that is going to be not for a project dependent, but for the organization to win some jobs and other things. So the companies who apply AI and get something out, it could be a proposal or it could be anything else. So there will be definitely a winner on some aspects. So that is some insights I can think of. And I think on a conclusion note, I would say, I think Casey talked about the expertise level of the project management professionals is something to be worried about, that they should not feel, empowering or embracing AI as part of their regular use. Because soon there will be a situation that qualifications, like, in golden days, I mean, my PMP is in 2008, and there are few other players who has got PMP in much earlier. So now there will be a trend that, who knows AI will be more benefit in leading project management aspects of working. So I believe that PMI is taking a very sincere move to have those who can go to our PMI website. You can see there is a platform where new courses which they said what is it, from the basic level to train PMI, to train project managers to know the basic as well as the advanced level of AI, and then it's more of a tool how you want to apply and take it forward. So that is my insight here, and I take this opportunity again. A big thanks to all the speakers here, and a session like this of 150 minutes plus, it's not easy go without a break. So thanks for every viewers here, and I think I can see even 222 attendees at 9:37 p.m. It's remarkable for your thinking to stay here and learn something about AI, because it's a buzzword and it's no more a buzzword, and people are taking to reality. So that's special about MIIP. We used to bring some case studies with some experts putting together, and a big thanks to Declan, Bhargav, Casey, as well as Martin is not here around, and Lina, to you, and my core team of MIIP, Jugal, Prakash. I believe he'll be listening our session, and David as well. And thank you once again for all the viewers here. And we will look forward to come back with another theme-based MIIP session series 9 a couple of months later. With that note, we end here. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.